the writing was so rich and so dense. We had a lot to play with, so we had a lot to explore. There was a lot of space to try stuff from different angles, and of course, when you come from somewhere else, it affects the reaction of the other. And so it was an endless, joy, true joy to be on the field and just go at each other and surprise each other and have a blast.
So before we got started, you mentioned that you're joining us from Belgium, your home country. I'm curious, has the regime aired there yet?
Yes, it has. I think, 2 months ago.
Yeah. So pretty much the same as in the US. And I'm curious if you have any sense, or if you pay attention to these things, how it went over in Belgium, because I'm curious how a European audience took this story of a Middle European dictatorship, and if it differed from how Americans viewed it.
To be very honest, I've been kind of off grid for a while. I've been mostly on the countryside, so I haven't really been in touch. I haven't been in cities. I haven't really spoken to a lot of people. Of course, I have a few friends that saw it, and they give you, their opinion and their feedback. But they're all people that are also, or directors or actors. So I don't know what the, general public, how they perceive it or feel it, but I get to say, I mean, it was alive. I saw things pass here and there. So yeah, I think people love it.
Great. I mean, as people in the US did. I guess for people, if you're watching this and you haven't yet seen The Regime, and you could probably describe it better being in it, but I would say that it is a political satire about a dictator played by Kate Winslet, and the relationship she forges with a sort of bodyguard who ends up becoming a very influential figure in her political and personal life, as played by you. And I think what's interesting about the way the show handles it is, on the surface, it's a political satire, but it wouldn't work without the human dimension. You two have this relationship that feels very real. And I wonder, did the politics of the story matter to you as much as the character dimensions and getting that relationship right?
Well, of course, the arena is vital. The magnitude of the arena and the exploration of that was a very interesting field because it truly is also an exploration of power on a huge scale, but also on a one-to-one scale. So the dynamics that we see happen between Elena and Zubac are also you can also transform them on a geopolitical level, and so all these dynamics that come with the use of power, abuse of power, the loss of power, the hunger for power. We see them on both scales. And I think that was, that was very fascinating. But of course, for us to get into the characters, of course, you have to seek out the human heart of it all. And because that's what brings the drum, that's what brings the beat, that's kind of the oxygen of it all. And so you want to bring that to life with as much truthfulness and electricity as possible.
One thing that I think is really interesting about the dynamic between Elena, Kate Winslet's character, and Zubac, your character, is that obviously she is a power-hungry, ruthless political figure. She has taken over this country's political system. But your character is kind of every bit as adept at working the levers of power. You end up really holding her under your sway. And I wonder what it was like working with Kate Winslet to build this relationship that has so many ups and downs. What is she like as a scene partner?
I mean, it's always hard to describe somebody else because you're always limited by your own perspective and perception. But I think it's like tango. Like you create that movement together. It's an exchange. It's a constant creative process of moving together and building together. So it was very playful and generous and alive. So yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it. Very playful and alive. And yeah, because the writing was so rich and so dense. We had a lot to play with. So we had a lot to explore. There was a lot of space to try stuff from different angles. And of course, when you come from somewhere else, it affects the reaction of the other. And so it was an endless it was an endless joy, true joy to be on the field and just go at each other and surprise each other and have a blast and bring as much honesty as you can to the universe that is created by the writer and the directors, of course.
One element of the writing that I wanted to touch on is Zubac's backstory. We're told pretty early on in the regime that he was involved in a violent conflagration against his own countrymen, and that much earlier in his life, we hear kind of rumor that he had abused his own mother. And I think that there comes with that a sort of tension of waiting to see when Zubac's going to explode. Yes. That must have been really interesting to build into the character.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, he's somebody that comes from utter darkness and like a Deus Ex Machina, all of a sudden gets the opportunity to switch his life around and to be literally almost the closest person to the most powerful person in the nation. And basically, I always interpreted it as being given a shot at light, so moving towards the light. But then again, what I like about the writing is that we are never able to define whether his intentions are good or manipulative or dark, or what I think is the most interesting is to actually incorporate all of that in the performance, so that at times you think like, okay, here he's really going the wrong way, or this feels like he's sincere and he really has good intention and he has a humanist vision, however limited, but his intentions are good. And I like the fact that remained open all the time. But then again, I'm not sure how people by the end of the series, by episode 6, will feel about Zubac and as an entity. But for me, at least, I thought it was really important to make him move by the desire to do good, because otherwise I wouldn't know how to handle him otherwise if his intentions were only dark and sociopathically infected with power hungry desire. That would have been, I wouldn't know how to handle that, because then I don't know what the heart of it all is. And that's also what I find interesting. What I think eventually Zubac also activates in Elena, and that's what I think to me was the core of the story. I mean, personally, is that I think Zubac was actually the only one to break down all the concrete walls around Elena and make her remember who she really is and get her in touch with the heart that is buried under so much trauma and pain. And he didn't fully succeed, but at some point he really is able to reveal her true nature to herself again and make her reconnect with that. And I think we see that. And I think that was the vital, for me at least, that was a vital journey.
Well, that's really an interesting thing about the show, right? Is that Elena didn't get into politics to be a dictator because she's just power hungry and that's her only trait. She often thinks she's doing the right thing. She that thinks she's being helpful. She thinks that she is making the world a better place. I think we can see that she's not right about that, but that is her goal in her own way that's been twisted by the experiences she's been through. You think that you can lead her to make better decisions to help people. That also might not be correct, but both of you in this way together are kind of embarking on this shared delusion that's rooted in, you could say it's rooted in an altruistic or good place, even though obviously the outcome is so catastrophic.
Yes, and that makes it so devastating to see that people with good intentions get completely corrupted and confused by the dynamics and the rules of the playground in which they have to function, and so that tells us that power corrupts even the most humanist spirit, so to speak, and so the nature of power in itself and the possibility for that holds within itself a very, very tricky force that can twist everyone around, and I think that's a very interesting reflection.
I want to talk a little bit about the physicality of the role, because I don't know if folks in this chat have seen this film, but you were in a film about a decade ago called Rust and Bone. And that's a very physical part where it's physically demanding, and also just your body and what it's capable of is a huge part of the story, opposite Marion Cotillard, who has physical limitations in the story. Here also, you have the capacity for great violence, and that kind of informs every moment you're on screen. Was there a past role that it recalled for you?
No, not really, because the context is so completely different, and I find it funny that people always refer to the capacity for violence when somebody has a certain size to them. And of course, when the writing suggests that that person has a violent past or has a violent temper. So I always find it interesting, or at least a challenge, to find the tenderness of that spirit. And I think we also at times see a lot of capacity for tenderness in Zubac, and a huge capacity for care, which to me, because when you have that size and the writing suggests that is a given. So I'm like, okay, now let's look for what else can we, characterize that persona with, the character. So I hope people don't perceive Zubac merely as this entity that is, that has a capacity for tremendous violence. I hope at least that people take away more than that from it.
Do you feel as though you have to find something to empathize with or to love in any character that you play?
Excuse me, say that again?
So do you have a lot of affection for Zubac? It's clear, and his capacity for tenderness. You see the person within. And I'm curious, in general, when you're playing that part,
that's what we create. I always try to find the humanity in it all, and that's such a huge idea, the humanity, because that of course implies all aspects of humanity, also the darkness. I think I need to. I think I do need to empathize. I need to want to defend that character. Let's say I think actors are lawyers of their character. We're not judges. We're lawyers. So we have to believe in them, and to some extent, hopefully, we also love them. Because if I don't love them, then I don't know what I'm doing. I want to take care of that character for the amount of time that we're working on it. I need to love it. Yeah, I need to love him. Yeah, for sure. And everything that he is in his being. Yeah.
I think it's that bond of love must be really valuable in a project like The Regime, and here's why. I'm sure people watching know that things are often shot out of sequence, but they may not realize that the production of The Regime is happening on like two parallel tracks. There were two directors you were working with, switching back and forth between them on any given day. And so in a situation like that, how do you hold on to the arc the character takes when one day you're shooting with director Stephen Frears, something for episode 1, and one day you're shooting with director Jessica Hobbs for something for episode 5? How do you find,
Sometimes it was even mixed on the day. Like in the morning, we would shoot episodes with with Jessica, and then we would shoot with, how? That's a good question. How? Having a connection with the arc and knowing where you are, and also, of course, be good with the directors and like really capture what fragment we're in, what moment in time we are in the very specific story that we're telling. But yeah, sometimes it's tricky. You're like, oh my God. I mean, after a while, after 2-3 weeks of production, you get, but like sometimes in the beginning, because you're still tuning, you're trying to find the tone, everything is setting itself, all the moving parts. And so sometimes that was tricky. Yeah, that's true.
I'm curious, your co-star, Kate Winslet, is well known for doing a lot of work independently on backstory. Yeah. Really, I know she did for this role, really finding what in Elena's past made her the way she is. Are you a big one for that as well, for kind of sitting with the notebook and thinking about the backstory?
Well, I mean, it depends. There's moments, there's times. Yeah, for sure, of course. Because you want to, also, I think the backstory of Zubac is not like overly established. So we get a few hints that are being revealed by supporting characters. So yeah, you have to come in with a charge. I always think about, if my character sits down on a bench and he's not saying anything, he should exude everything that he is. So that's always something that to me is very important. I'm like, let him just sit down on a bench and people walk by. What does that person exude? What does he vibrate? What is his energy? So that is something that you have to work on, because you want it to be full, you want it to be charged. Like the very first second you see Zubac, it needs to trigger your imagination, and you want the audience to start wondering what this being is and where he comes from. And in order to do so, you have to make sure that there's an inner life that is rich and that is loaded with life.
Are you a big noticer in your everyday non-working life? Do you notice, because you're describing how you want to exude energies. If you're just walking through a park or something, do you notice the energies that other people give off? I'm just curious.
I don't know. Of course, every day you feel different, but I pay attention to things. I think so, at least. I mean, it's always hard to judge oneself, but I like to pay attention. I like to see things. I like to look at colors. I like to see how people walk. I like to pay attention. All these unique characteristics that everybody has. They're such an amazing field of inspiration and an expression of life and existence. And I think that's where the beauty is. Yeah.
I'm curious. I was doing research to speak to you, and I hadn't realized before that your father was an actor in Belgium. And I'm curious what it was like being around the arts from a young age, and what you kind of maybe observed about how an actor prepares.
I mean, he's a mythical figure in Belgium. he was mostly a theater actor. He loved theater. He was not so crazy about filming. He didn't like the waiting. So he was a very peculiar. I mean, I prefer to describe him as an artist actor. He was like a total artist. So yeah, what do I remember? I mean, there's a lot of magical moments. There's less magical moments. But when it comes to the, let's say, art of acting, for lack of better expression, he truly embodied the idea that everything comes from the actor. Nothing exists. I mean, in acting, nothing exists when the actor doesn't bring it to life, especially, and on stage, that is especially true. In films, a lot is created for you, but still then, the actor is the vessel that creates life to some extent and brings the writing to life. And without the actor, there's nothing actually.
I'm curious, do you still feel you've had a very long, very accomplished career? Do you still feel like you're learning? Do you feel like on the set of The Regime, you were still learning and growing?
All the time. There's learning, there's unlearning, there's discovering, there's rediscovering. There's of course, all the time. Because I think as humans, I mean, we live and we are ever changing organisms. Everything affects us all the time. So I'm not who I was 5 years ago. So I feel different about things, and I'm affected in a different way by what I read. If I read a certain script of a movie that I did 10 years ago, I would interpret it different. So everything is in a constant state of movement and permanent change. So all the time. Because acting is not a science. It's even if you can approach it, I mean, to some extent, but you can't lock it. It's like a jungle, it keeps growing. It's beautiful. And that's what it should be. It should be a permanently expanding art form. Yeah.
Was there something in particular? I was interested to hear you use the idea of learning and unlearning. Was there something you had to unlearn, or let go, in order to play Zubac?
Yeah, acting silly all the time. I'm always silly on set. No, because it's kind of a way to take the pressure off the lid, So sometimes I'm just a goofball. But it's not because I'm not concentrating. Actually, for me, that's a form of hyper concentrating. It's just a different. So sometimes, sometimes it's. But thank God we had very funny co-stars. So it was never obnoxious or annoying. But at times you need to know when to shut up. Basically, yeah. That's always a trait. That's also with acting.
That's the balance.
You need to know when to shut up. Yeah, you need to know when not to speak, and yeah.
I'm curious. People may not know this. It was not a short shoot. It was 5.5 months. It was in Austria, right? And it was. How do you know?
And London.
And London, excuse me. Yeah. But keeping that balance and not tipping over into pure goofball. But how do you and your co-stars keep spirits up when it's months away from home and it's the work is hard? How did you keep spirits elevated?
I mean, by gratitude, being grateful that we can do this. I mean, what a blessing! What a joy! I mean, if you consider, the blessing that it is to be able to do this, wow. So don't complain and just work hard and be grateful, and again, shut up. Don't complain. And sometimes of course, there's moments that you're tired, and then you have micro irritations, and of course, and that's all. There's nothing wrong with that. But be happy and realize. Count your blessing, and then just wow, just give it your all, man. Be happy, man. This is, I mean, the world is in a very weird stage, I think. And you know, for us to be able to, you know, do this with passion, with great people, to make more than a decent living off of it. I mean, well, if you can't be happy and grateful for that, then I don't know what will make you, you know, I mean, yeah.
Right. This is the dream. I guess in the time we have left, pivoting off that idea of gratitude and being excited for what's next, if you could tell us, like, what you're working on, what do we have to look forward to?
Well, there's a project I'm going to start in September. It's a French film, but it hasn't been announced yet, so I'm not going to reveal it until production.
Yes, of course.
But then again, I'm very excited. I shot a film with Terrence Malick.
Right, The Way of the Wind, right?
Yes, approximately 4.5 years ago, and he's still working on it, and so I'm very, very curious to see what he created. It's a very unique, special project, a passion project. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, he's been developing it and working on it for at least, you know, or approximately 30 years, on and off, that is, of course. And the fact, you know, he's already editing for 4.5 years shows you how much love and passion and commitment and goes into it. And I mean, I find that beyond beautiful, because we live in an era of deadlines and release dates and rollouts and whatnot. And often artists, especially directors, suffer a lot from that. At least that's what I tend to understand when I speak to most of them. And then to see how Terrence Malick finds a way in that madness of industrialization and really, you know, slows down the clock and stays loyal to his creation and doesn't let himself be forced into anything until he feels it is right. I find that extremely inspiring and touching, and I admire that a lot. So I'm very curious, very curious. It was a unique experience. Again, a blessing that I'm extremely grateful for.
Absolutely. Well, I'm certain that it'll be worth the wait. And I want to thank everyone who came to this SAG-AFTRA Foundation conversation. I want to thank you, Matthias Schoenaerts, and The Regime is available to stream on Max. All right, until next time, bye.